Good morning.
Good morning. Ready to start the day.
Ready to start the day. We're going to Delphi today. Delphi. Sorry. My bad. And that's all we're doing today, really, right?
Yes, because it's nearly a 3-hour drive.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to breakfast and then get in the car and go. Yeah. Stay tuned. Okay guys, my parents are down at breakfast already. I stayed back because I cannot get up as easily as they can, but I'm gonna head down to breakfast with them. We're gonna eat some breakfast and then we're gonna head out. Very exciting.
Alright guys, so I met my parents down at breakfast. Mom was working on the blog. You can see the Parliament building at breakfast, which was so cool. Yummy breakfast yet again with beautiful views. I've been struggling to eat this is the third time now on my blog I'm eating this, and it's the first time I've done it successfully. We headed back up to the room to grab everything we needed. We had a long day ahead of us, including a very long drive, so we had a lot to get, and then we headed out. We met our driver for our almost 3-hour-long drive to Delphi. And the views were beautiful, guys, but in all honesty, I slept for most of this car ride, so when I woke up, this was my view. And this is a beautiful little village. It's about 10 minutes from Delphi, and we got to drive through it and look at the beautiful scenery and really just admire everything before we ended up getting all the way to Delphi. This town was adorable, guys, and we actually ended up getting to go back to it later today to walk around and look in some of the shops. It was really beautiful. Super picturesque, super quaint, lots of locals, and it's not tourist season, which means that it wasn't overrun by tourists, which was really great for us as we were walking around. We were able to soak up the last of these gorgeous mountain views as we headed all the way up about 10 minutes from that town to Delphi. All my life I thought Delphi was pronounced Delphi, but after being here I learned that the correct pronunciation is Delphi. We eventually made it there, and it was time for us to meet up with our guide, but not before seeing a bunch of really cute cats that were begging for food from tourists, of course, and I loved that part of my day, as always. And then it was time for us to head into this gorgeous museum. This is what Delphi looked like when it was in its prime, in its best days. 7 levels of religious buildings and communal buildings, and this is a Greek version of the Sphinx. We got to see lots of ancient artifacts. Most of them are religiously significant to this place. They were actually able to uncover lots of bronze and silver and gold from the archaeological site, which is really amazing considering that all of this is actually a lot older than the Parthenon, which we saw yesterday on our second day, if you'll remember. Here you can see Delphi in its prime. The largest building there is the Temple of Apollo. Delphi was dedicated to Apollo, and here you can see some music that was actually carved into stone that they used to worship him. It was actually believed that Delphi was the center of the world, and on top of that large column there was usually a cauldron that held this really large stone in the center here, which was considered to be the very center of the earth. They had a lot of bronze statues recovered, which again is amazing considering how long ago these were actually made. We made our way through the museum and saw more cats as we left. But most importantly, we saw Yulia, who our guide told us was actually the dog of Delphi. She stays here. And we saw some more kittens that were just kind of waiting around. And our guide told us that last year they had around 25 cats that they could keep track of that were here. We made our way over to the actual archaeological site, but not before yet another cat. You guessed it. Aside from being the center of the world, Delphi was also the home of Apollo's oracle, which the ancient Greeks believed could tell the future, and they would come here and offer gifts and statues, anything to essentially make the oracle give them a prophecy. Over here is the ancient agora, where people would meet and buy offerings before making their way up to the temple where we are going next to offer their offerings and hopefully receive a prophecy in return. Also around Delphi were these treasuries, most of them built by each major city. This is the treasury of Athens, and they would keep really important kind of memorabilia of their victories in there, and they would also keep any offerings that they wanted to give to Apollo. And finally, we could see the columns of the Temple of Apollo that were left. It was quite crowded here, but you could still get a really, really good view of these. Also in this temple was the place where the Oracle of Delphi would give her prophecies, and it was considered to be Apollo speaking to the believer through her. We know today that Apollo speaking through her was actually her sitting on a stool that sat right above a crack in the floor that would emit fumes of sulfur and methane and would actually make her hallucinate, which is exactly what those prophecies were, hallucinations. As we made our way up, the views just got more and more spectacular. I could not stop looking at these mountains. They were absolutely gorgeous. Even behind the Temple of Apollo, they were just beautiful. After getting a good view of this gorgeous temple ruins here, we made our way up to the theater where they would have singing competitions and poetry competitions dedicated to Apollo, since he was not only the god of the sun and of light, but also music and poetry. The views from up here were even more spectacular, but we made our way back down and got back in our van where we headed to the town of Delphi, which was maybe another 10-minute drive down the road. Also super picturesque, also really, really beautiful, and our guide actually knew a spot to take us to where we could get this absolutely gorgeous view of the bay where people would make their way to Delphi, since it was not safe to travel by land. But while we were here, we were able to get this absolutely gorgeous view of the water over there where people would have arrived. And also all of this green is the largest olive grove in all of Greece, which was absolutely insane to see. Then we got back in the van and headed back to the town of Delphi, where we went for lunch in this cute little tavern. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name because I know that I'll mess it up, but we had beautiful views sitting there. The food, guys, was delicious. Dad had a stew. I had chicken on a stick, and Mom had delicious artichoke hearts. I tried both of theirs and they were super yummy, but we finished up lunch and then it was time for us to head back over to the first town that we drove through on our way to Delphi. More of these ridiculous views on our way over there, and we stopped in a cute little bakery where we got to look at all of these delicious local foods. It was really pretty in here, and my dad actually ended up getting some ice cream. And then we decided to just take a walk down the main street and look at as many shops as possible. It was so picturesque, guys. These here are 999 steps up to a church. It's not actually 999, it's just a myth, but I decided, why would I do that when I could hang out with this cute little fellow? So my parents walked all the way up and I decided to stay here with him and keep him company. He looked so sweet and so lonely. And then we kept moving on to look at more of the shops and look at more of the buildings. The views here were just once again spectacular. It was super hot out, so that mountain breeze felt like heaven. We poked our head into a lot of local shops just to see what they were selling. There was a lot of woodwork that they were selling. There was jewelry. There were a lot of taverns around, places where you could eat, and it was just a really, really beautiful place overall. We mostly just enjoyed the views and the scenery and the picturesque town and really all it had to offer. It was so beautiful here. I just wanted to stay here and soak it up forever. While we were waiting for the van, the happiest moment of my life occurred, and this adorable cat decided that she wanted to lay on my foot for a while, which was absolutely the cutest. I could not get over myself, but it was time for us to leave this beautiful town and the beautiful archaeological site of Delphi, which was so sad, but it was so great to get to see all of this and all of this amazing history that was here. But we said our last goodbyes, and then it was time for us to hop back in the van for our 3-hour journey back, which I also slept straight through for. But we made it back to Athens and back to our hotel, and it was a long day, guys.
All right, guys, I'm ending it short here. My parents went out to dinner and I did not because it was a long day and I was really tired, but they brought me back pork on a stick and some pita and some yummy dessert. And we're gonna call it here today, but I will see you guys tomorrow for more of our crazy adventures. Tune in.